Joining me now are two very special guests. I'm joined by the former Chief Election Commissioner, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, and the former Election Commissioner, Ashok Lavasa. Appreciate both of you joining us. Let's cut the chase. 7-phase election, and with every phase, controversies around the Election Commission continue to swirl. The Election Commission now facing ire over not releasing the exact voter turnout numbers, instead supplying only the percentage of voter turnout and saying, we are not legally mandated to do this. Under Form 17C, we will only provide this data to candidates and their agents. Does that work for you, Dr. Qureshi? Are you happy, satisfied with the way this election is being conducted?
Well, actually, the positive side of the election, that the fact that this is the biggest election in the world, 15 million people are organizing it, things are happening with clockwork precision, and almost everybody is doing his job very well. So they are all being subsumed by the controversies which have been generated. And there are only two controversies. One is about enforcement of the model code of conduct even-handedly, and the second is the question of numbers. To me, the controversy about the numbers is totally meaningless, pointless, because the data which is essential, which is important, is already in the public domain, in the sense that 17C is a form which is filled by the presiding officer at the end of the poll. He cannot go home without signing it and without giving the copy, after getting the signatures of the agent, giving it to the agents or the candidates. So once this data is already in the public domain, what is the harm in releasing it to the public? What is so secret about it? What is so sacrosanct about it?
So you're saying, because the Election Commission has told the Supreme Court they are not legally mandated to give these numbers. You're telling me that there is nothing sacrosanct. This should be given to the public as it has in the past. What has changed so suddenly?
Exactly. That is the question, because this controversy, according to me, is totally needless, avoidable, and it is damaging the reputation of the Election Commission. Why are they doing it to themselves? Why? They should release it immediately, and there was no reason to withhold it, because, the other controversy which I've been reading in the media, that, very high, the change was reported after a couple of days or 4 days or 11 days. Now, to me, all those changes are absolutely irrelevant, because for me, what is important is the data inside the machine. That is where the future of the political party candidate is captured, and only a magician can change it, because they are under 3-4 tier of security. So EVM data, which is recorded in 17C, is all that we need. All other changes and debate and discussion, to my mind, are useless.
But you're saying that data must be provided to the public. Do you agree with that, Ashok Lavasa, that the Election Commission cannot hide behind the so-called statutory framework and saying, look, Form 17C will only be shown to candidates and their agents? Should the public not have the right to know, A, the absolute number of voters in every constituency, and B, how many of them have actually voted? And that should be available in real time in the public domain, surely.
Thank you, Rajdeep. I agree entirely with what Dr. Qureshi has said, that Election Commission of India, being the custodian of all this data, it is in a position to release this data and make it comprehensible to the people. And one must also understand that everything that the Election Commission does to build confidence is not what is prescribed in law. There are so many steps which it takes to reach out to people, to make things convenient for people, to facilitate their understanding. In fact, if you go back in time, the entire exercise of sweep, which was initiated when Dr. Qureshi was in the Election Commission, that is not legally required for the Election Commission to do. But it is an effort to educate the voters. It is an effort to win their trust and confidence. Mm-hmm. So, in that vein, what I would feel is like the analogy that I often cite about a cricket match going on, where the organizers keep the score to themselves and don't display it publicly for the people to see. Now, that they can get away by saying that, you look, we are keeping the scoreboard, scorecard, and there is a system by which that score can be verified. That's all fine. But Why add to the anxiety of people by not disclosing the data which you already have? Now, as far as the right to know, the legality of all this, which is being argued, I think nobody can question the legality because, in terms of the conduct of election rules, Form 17C is mandatory, it is given, it is signed by the presiding officer. So, all that is fine. And the fact that so many people, the polling agents have the Form C, and through them, the candidates also has information about the number of votes given in a polling station. That is all fine. But if you look at past practices, this data has always been released after a certain degree of accuracy and verification is done by the commission. And of course, you always have the caveat that there are a certain category of votes which are not captured in this data because Form 17C is only the record of number of votes cast in that particular polling station.
No,
the other thing that I want to say.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
If there are 10 candidates and there are 1,500 polling stations, there are so many people who will have this Form 17C and the effort required by all of them to put this data together. And then during compilation or doing the addition, there could be mistakes made by the candidates. And if they are expected to put out this data for public information, it can lead to more confusion. Whereas the Election Commission, which is the custodian of this data, which has access to this data, and I think which is responsible for informing the people, they are in a very good position to put this data out, and it's very elementary data that is being sought.
No, I take your point. The problem, of course, Dr. Qureshi, is this is coming at a time when the credibility of the Election Commission itself is coming under question. You've got the delay in the release of the final voter turnout data, the unusually high revised figures, the absence of absolute numbers at the constituency and polling station level. All of this is leading to suspicion. Should we be suspicious as voters of this country, or are you completely confident that the delay, for example, in the release of the final voter turnout data, the unusually high revised figures, sometimes going up to as much as 8%, are you okay with all of this, or is there something that is missing?
No. In fact, I'm surprised that this confusion has been created, and I think Election Commission itself is responsible for it. Why did they not release it on the same evening or the maximum the next morning? To me, this data belongs to the public. It is already in the public domain. And trying to say that it has to be kept secret from whom? And why?
So you're saying this data of the revised data should have been released right away, not after 10, 11 days. Am I correct?
Quite right. Because there is no reason for the data to change after so many days. Because I'll tell you how the data is generated real time. When you enter the polling station, there is a Form 17A which is writing your attendance. You are voter number 1, I'm voter number 2, voter number 3, and at 2 o'clock, 350 people have voted. Now, one officer from Election Commission comes, how many have voted? So you see the last line and it says 350. And in any case, every 2 hours, this data is being conveyed to the Election Commission every 2 hours, which is releasing it to the public. So the whole day, this data is becoming public. At the end of the day, only the totals have to be transferred to Form 17C. And the presiding officer cannot leave the polling station without...
I take your point, but Dr. Qureshi, the Election Commission is saying that this data is available on our website, on our app. Just because we haven't made it available through a press release doesn't mean we are hiding something.
No. If that is true, that it is available on the app or on the website, that is fine. I'm sure that is all people should be demanding. Press release or no press release. Although press release, anything which enhances your credibility is in your own interest. And anything which...
and are you surprised that this voter turnout is being revised by 7, 8, often 9, 10%? Does that trouble you? Is that something surprising?
It does surprise me, because the only reason why some change happens, in our time there used to be a press conference at the end of the day, which has been discontinued for what good reason, I don't know. and we will, our man officer will tell you that today the polling turnout has been X amount. And he said, but this is not a final figure because there are hundreds of queues where people are lined up, and that will take another couple of
Right.
hours. Final figures will come after 2 hours. So even after 2 hours, then you have the final figures, release it.
Are
And
you also
how long
surprised,
does
Ashok Lavasa? Are you surprised with the delay in providing the final revised numbers? Is that surprising that it has took place after the first and second round after 11 days?
Yeah, it is surprising. As I said, Rajdeep, that in the second phase, the data was released on the third or fourth day. So, which means the system is capable of displaying this data or giving it out. So, why did it take 11 days? I fail to understand. And delay in such cases is bound to create doubt. And I think transparency is the best solution in these circumstances. Why do you not make this data public? After all, the election commission runs a certain system which runs on the basis of procedures which are prescribed. So, as per the prescribed procedure, data is being compiled at the polling station. It is being reported to the returning officer. The returning officer, after scrutiny and the observer, they also report the data to the election commission. So, there is no reason why people should not have this elementary data. Of course,
No,
I
because maybe
agree.
the election commission fears that if there is a mismatch, then there will be people who will say something dal mein kuch kala hai. So out of the fear that there could be a mismatch is what is worrying them.
No, Rajdeep, I was coming to that precise point that you see, whereas it is fine that election commission is not obliged to give you a ball by ball commentary of the process of election. So that is fine. The second thing is also that even if there is a mismatch subsequently, that can be explained because discrepancies in such a large system can always arise. Something like 1 million people who are involved in the conduct of elections, more side the possibility of mistakes. And even if there are increases that have been reported, I'm sure in the past also these figures have changed. But the point is that the more open you are about your information, and the explanation that you can provide for any inconsistency or discrepancy, I think that is what will satisfy the people.
So both of you are calling really for openness and transparency. In conclusion, Dr. Qureshi, there is the other issue of the model code of conduct. Notices are sent for hate speeches or divisive speeches, not to the individuals. Narendra Modi doesn't get it, Rahul Gandhi doesn't get it, it goes to the party president. And then you get a sense that right after 5 weeks after complaints are made, the election commission wakes up. It almost seems as if the election commission doesn't want to rock the boat, especially when it involves the prime minister or the most important leader in the opposition. Does that worry you that, in these 5 weeks, politicians have continued to make what are seen by most people as divisive, hateful speeches?
Yes. I'm surprised that what happened in 2019 is being repeated. And Ashok Lavasa was an actor in the whole thing, and he knows it, the inside story. That for 25 days, no action was taken on the model code, and Supreme Court had to come down heavily. Why are you sitting over these? Why are you not deciding? And then hurriedly, commission sat and took decision. Mind you, nobody has questioned the decision, howsoever faulty the decision may have been. They are only questioning the timing. How could you sit over it for 25 days and this time when the same thing is happening? Why are you taking so long? And second interesting thing that happened, when somebody violates, we give a notice to that violator, writing to his party president and balancing it with writing to another party president. Now, a third person who was also given notice, he will say, why are you giving me notice? Please write to my party president, because the law is the same for all. So, obviously, these
No,
are the
does that
kind of things.
suggest that the EC is toothless or spineless? Does it suggest the EC is toothless or spineless, Mr. Lavasa? Which of the two? Either the EC is toothless with this model code of conduct or spineless that it will not take on the absolute top people in this country.
I think this issue again, Rajdeep, goes back to the issue of transparency that we were discussing. And I have always held that all complaints pertaining to model code, they should be put on the website. There should be a timeline for disposal, and action taken by the EC should equally be on the website so that people can know what is happening.
But
They
there is
may
no
not
action at the end
execute
of the
the
day, just
decision.
sending a note. Sir, just sending some kind of a stricture. Could the EC do more? My point is, could the EC do more to stop these kind of speeches that are prima facie seen as divisive?
Yeah, so if you see, Rajdeep, what has the EC done? They've given a notice to the party, which, according to me, is welcome. Parties also should be made responsible, other than the person against whom the complaint has been made. So that is good. The second thing is that they have admonished or asked the parties to admonish the people who have violated, because otherwise they would not have issued this warning, which means that they are admitting that violation of model code of conduct has taken place.
No,
So, but
I take your point, sir, but the worry is, Mr. Lavasa, that when it comes to Abhijit Gangopadhyay, the former judge of the Kolkata High Court, he is stopped from campaigning for 24 hours. Will you ever do that to a top leader? That's my point. Will anyone ever tell a top leader, sorry, you violated, you've crossed a certain line, you're not going to campaign for 48 hours? Imagine if that was done to the top leaders of this country.
yeah, but
Wouldn't that
Rajiv,
be the signal to send out?
no, again, go back to the analogy of a referee. Do you think that a referee is not expected to give somebody out or show him a yellow card or a red card if there is an offense committed? For the referee,
Dr.
all
Qureshi, you want to...
players
I'm having a problem with the audio of Mr. Lavasa. You
So
want to take
he
that,
had
Dr.
to-
Qureshi?
Pardon me,
Should a red card be shown to any leader who violates the model code of conduct, irrespective of how big or powerful he or she is?
Absolutely, because there are no different laws for different people. Simple.
So they should be banned from campaigning. If you ban Abhijit Gangopadhyay, then ban top leaders as well for 48 hours.
Yeah, exactly. What a different law exists for Gangopadhyay and Bandopadhyay and for the others?
So you're very clear about that. You're saying that if any leader is seen to make spiteful, hateful speeches, don't just send them notices, ban them for 48 hours. That would send out a more powerful signal. Am I correct?
Correct. Even the notice will be successful in 50% of the cases. And if somebody is debarred from campaigning even for 1 hour, the rest of the result will happen from there. They will never repeat that.
Either way, I hope that the words that both of you are putting out will be heard by those in power and in the opposition, and that they will realize that they have a special Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lavasa. Yes.
Yeah. There is just one more thing that I want to say, and is also a cause of worry is that there seems to be some kind of alienation between civil society and the election commission, or between the election commission. I remember election commission always the as a channel of communicating with the people and treat them as friends who will provide the bridge between election commission and the voters. And I think civil society organizations also in the past have played a constructive role in making the processes smooth and conveying to the people something that the election commission would like to convey.
Sir, but there is a lack of faith now.
Alienation is not a good trend.
Sir, there's a lack of faith, and the election commission goes to the Supreme Court and says that these individuals have vested interests. Is civil society doesn't have a voice?
So this is what is disturbing, that this alienation between these stakeholders, important stakeholders, I think it's not good for the system as a whole. And these are all matters, all that we have been discussing. I think the Election Commission is eminently capable to resolve them itself without seeking any judicial intervention. So I think, or without the need for any judicial intervention.
Well, the very fact that there has been judicial intervention or various groups have gone to the Supreme Court is a cause for worry. The Election Commission ultimately is expected to be the ultimate neutral umpire. Has it really played that role of the neutral umpire? 10 seconds each. Dr. Qureshi, how many marks are you giving them out of 10? Have they really played a neutral umpire? Honest answer.
Well, no, very difficult to answer that.
Have they played
And
a neutral umpire, sir? Have they been neutral or not, in your view?
well, I think they have not been very intelligent and wise in handling the situation. They have created doubts about themselves, and they have invited a judicial intervention which was prohibited by the constitution
Right.
during the process, and they have themselves invited by their action. So they have to do some introspection.
Mr. Lavasa, have they played the role of a neutral umpire? Has our confidence in the electoral process been enhanced or diminished?
Yeah, so I think that is something which everyone will view from his or her own perspective. But surely the fact that so many questions are being raised, so many judicial interventions are happening, I think that does call for an introspection. And
Right.
I think there is no substitute for being more transparent.
Okay. I think that is the buzzword, transparent. Please be transparent. Do not be opaque. Election Commission is expected to restore confidence that the people should have in our electoral process. Ashok Lavasa and Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, I appreciate both of you joining us here on the Political Rumble.
Thank you.